This is why 94% of American homes are built from wood, while most of Europe builds with brick and stone. The answer isn't what you think. It's not that one material beats the other. This is a story about forests and fires, cheap nails and desperate kings, and two continents, shaped by completely different versions of the same problem. What do we have, and what have we run out of? Before we go deeper, subscribe now, because this channel is built for people who want to understand the hidden systems behind everyday American life before everyone else starts talking about them. Let's start with the numbers, because they're staggering. According to the National Association of Home Builders, in 2024, wood framing, or what's technically called light frame construction, accounted for 94% of all completed single-family homes in the United States. That's roughly 959,000 wood-framed houses finished in a single year. Concrete made up just 5%. Steel barely registered at around 4,000 homes. America doesn't just prefer wood, America is addicted to it. Cross the Atlantic and you enter a completely different world. Walk through London, Berlin, Amsterdam, or Paris, and you're surrounded by brick, stone, and concrete. Timber houses aren't just uncommon in much of Europe. In some cities, they were literally outlawed centuries ago. So what happened? Why did these two building traditions split so dramatically? The answer begins with trees. Before European settlers arrived, the land that would become the United States contained well over 1 billion acres of forest. Today, it's around 750 million acres, and even after centuries of logging, 5% of the Earth's remaining forest cover sits in the US, with Canada holding another 10%. When English colonists landed in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607, they found themselves surrounded by timber in quantities that would have seemed almost mythological to anyone back in England. So they did the obvious thing and built with wood. Europe, meanwhile, was running out. Due to centuries of feudal land disputes, unclear ownership, and relentless exploitation, the forests of Central Europe had been decimated by the late 1700s. The Germans even had a word for it, Holznot, meaning wood crisis. By the end of the 18th century, there were hardly any forests left in Germany. Wood became so scarce that in winter, people burned fence posts, steps, and anything wooden they could get their hands on just to stay warm. You don't build houses out of a material you're burning for survival. But Europe's shift to brick wasn't driven by scarcity alone. It was driven by catastrophe. On September 2nd, 1666, a fire broke out in a bakery on Pudding Lane in central London. Over the next 4 days, it consumed the medieval city, 87 parishes, over 13,000 houses, dozens of churches, including St. Paul's Cathedral. 70,000 people were left homeless. And here's the detail that changed everything. The wealthy center of the city, where brick mansions stood, suffered far less damage. The crowded timber neighborhoods burned. The brick survived. King Charles II responded with a declaration that still echoes through European architecture today. He said, and I'm quoting directly, "We therefore wish that no man shall build any house or building, great or small, unless made of brick or stone. If any man fails to do this, the magistrate will order it to be pulled down, and the person will be punished." The Rebuilding of London Act of 1666 banned wood from the exterior of buildings. It regulated materials, costs, even workers' wages, and it established a precedent that spread across Europe, tying fire safety to masonry construction in ways that shaped urban development for centuries to come. Meanwhile, an ocean away, America was about to have its own revolution. Not political this time, but architectural. In 1832, a man named George Washington Snow built a warehouse in Chicago using a method no one had seen before. Instead of the heavy timber frames that required expert joinery, mortise and tenon connections, and highly skilled carpenters, Snow used thin, standardized lumber, 2x4s, and 2x6s, nailed together to form a light but sturdy skeleton. The following year, Augustine Taylor used the same technique to build St. Mary's Catholic Church in nearby Fort Dearborn. He put up that 36 by 24-foot church for just $400, using carpenters who weren't even specialists. Architectural historian Siegfried Gedeon later marveled at the invention, writing, "To put together a house like a box, using only nails, this must have seemed utterly revolutionary to carpenters. Traditional builders mocked it. They called it balloon framing because they said the structures were so light they'd blow away like a balloon. But they didn't blow away. And the name, which started as an insult, stuck permanently. What made balloon framing possible wasn't just the wood, it was the nails. America had invented automated nail making, producing nails for less than the tax alone on European nails. Combine cheap nails with abundant timber and water-powered sawmills, and suddenly any farmer could build his own house without years of training. For the first time in history, construction was democratized. This triggered what economists call path dependence, a self-reinforcing cycle. Craftsmen specialized in wood. Industries geared up to supply lumber. Building codes were written around wooden structures, and each generation passed these techniques to the next, deepening America's commitment to timber construction. The pattern accelerated after World War II, when millions of veterans returned home needing affordable housing. Developer William Levitt seized the moment, applying assembly line techniques to home construction. With support from the GI Bill and Federal Housing Administration loans, in Levittown on Long Island, over 17,000 homes went up using standardized wood frame designs. Houses were completed in days, not months. The American suburb was born, and it was built from 2x4s. Now, there's a legitimate question here. Is wood actually worse than brick? It depends on what you're measuring. Brick lasts longer. The National Institute for Standards and Technology gives brick masonry a 100-year lifespan, and many brick structures far exceed that. But well-maintained wood frame homes from the 1800s are still occupied today. Durability often comes down to craftsmanship and upkeep more than material. Fire is a real concern. A house fire in a wood frame American home can be devastating compared to the same fire in a European masonry building. Balloon framing, in particular, had a grave defect. No fire breaks between floors, allowing flames to shoot up wall cavities from basement to roof. Builders eventually shifted to platform framing to address this, but the fundamental vulnerability of wood to fire remains. Brick, however, has its own weakness. It's heavy, and it relies on weight to stay in place. In earthquakes, masonry walls can collapse catastrophically. Wood frame structures, being lighter and more flexible, tend to perform far better in seismic events. Then there's cost. Wood frame construction runs $150 to $250 per square foot. Brick and masonry run $200 to $350. In Florida, concrete masonry units add $25 to $50 per square foot over wood framing, though they provide superior wind mitigation for hurricane-prone areas. And labor matters too. Almost any construction crew knows wood framing. Masonry requires specialized skills that are increasingly rare, with rising labor costs and a shortage of skilled masons reducing brick's market share from its peak in the early to mid-1900s. Here's one final detail that might surprise you. Many American homes that look like brick houses are actually wood frame structures with a thin brick veneer attached to the outside. The brick can't even support itself. It has to be anchored to the wood frame beneath. So even when America chooses the appearance of brick, it's still building with wood underneath. The diversion between American wood and European brick isn't a story about one material being superior. It's a story about two continents shaped by different resources, different disasters, and different innovations. Europe lost its forests and gained fire regulations. America kept its forests and invented a way to build with them faster and cheaper than anyone thought possible. And once those paths were set, centuries of accumulated knowledge, industry, regulation, and culture made them nearly impossible to reverse. Interestingly, this is starting to change with emerging mass timber technologies like cross-laminated timber, which allows for taller wood buildings that meet modern international building code standards. But for now, 94%. That number isn't just a statistic. It's the weight of 400 years of history, still standing in every American neighborhood you'll ever drive through. So subscribe before you leave, because once you start noticing these hidden design choices, you'll never look at American homes, streets, or neighborhoods the same way again, and you don't want to miss what we uncover next.